turning point where I was like, I'm never fucking with a white guy again. Like, there was just this level of like out of touch with reality, out of touch with what women, like any minority, women, people of color, fucking people with disabilities, like there was just this, I think, this privilege that I saw in white men, and not all of them, I'm not gonna like lump them all together, but at least the ones that I grew up with, that like it just completely turned me off. I just could never. It's not to say that I couldn't end up with a white guy, but it's like now I have a mixed kid, and like there are just certain values that I want to instill in her that like I don't know if like a white guy is going to be able to raise her the way, you know what I mean? Like now it's just deeper than that.
Guys, listen to what she just said. Let me go back. She has a
At
what?
least the ones that I grew up with, that like it just
A
completely.
huge reason why marriage is on the decline is because of female empowerment and feminism. And we have to talk about that, because it's something that, like you had stated earlier, that it's about things being equal. And it's something where if you're a woman and you're successful and you're educated, it's one of those things where why would you necessarily, especially if you don't want children, why would you go down that route? Except for, I believe being, again, a partnership or relationship is something that is healthy for people if it's a good relationship. But I think that more and more women are willing to say, I really don't need a man, and believe that.
So I
A lot of this is victims of victims of colonization, right? I'm not trying to bash on Mexicans or nothing like that, but this is something that a lot of people, we've been colonized, guys. Like the way that we think in a way that is like double-minded. We almost can't even think for ourselves. We have to filter everything through the lens of, is it okay for us to think this way? Is it okay for us to have an independent thought? Would you agree that we've been colonized mentally as a collective? Most people have names that's not even their original names. Like, we're speaking languages that's not even our original languages. We're operating in a system that we probably shouldn't even be operating in. Would you agree with that? That's either true or it's false. We are the byproduct of colonization, so now we're here. It's like it's too late now. It didn't happen. But I made this picture because I feel as though when you have, this is what it's like to have a double mind. You got one side where you're you, but then you have another side like people that you could never be. You're trying to identify with something that you could never really identify. In severe cases, persistent racism can lead to a brain drain, where talented individuals from marginalized racial groups may choose in search of more equitable opportunities and environments elsewhere. And in a way, guys, we can see that this is not just in the United States, but this happens in countries like Asia, Africa, Europe. In America, a lot of people that was discriminated against in their home countries came to America in search of better opportunities, right? And so this isn't something that we are imagining. And I made this background for this video with basically showing a police state forcing people in society to work and build. And we're building basically technology. We can do direct payments. Direct payments are crucial. It's critical. Why? Because while some people may say, well, we don't want to do direct payments, we want to do education, entrepreneurship, college, HBCUs. Well, the problem with that, guys, is that that's power to institutions instead of giving it directly to the people who are affected. Could you agree with that? That's either true or it's false, right? Imagine something horrible happens to your family, and instead of paying you directly, Someone says, well, we're going to donate the money to a charity, and the charity is going to give you, the person who is bereaved, financial payments. It would make to look at this through a historical scope. Slavery, guys. The difference between what happened to us and any other group is that our slavery was racialized. So if you were a person who had a black parent, your child would then be considered a slave. So we couldn't even get out of it because it was racialized. Since with other people, they had indentured servitude, but it was contractual and it was only for a certain number of years. We couldn't get out of slavery because of the color of he's working in Azores and the Cape Verde Islands with the Portuguese, and then he's going to find himself in the New World. Okay, when he goes to the New World, he begins trafficking Native Americans in Mexico City. Okay, and this is in 1567. Now, at this time when all of this is going on, I want you guys to keep in mind that when this trade was going on, that it was people being sent from this part of the world, the Americas, to Spain and Africa, and you had people from Africa and Europe being sent to the New World. Okay, it was a back and forth. Uh, it was a back and forth trade that was going on. Okay, and I'm going to show you this by telling you what was taking place. So we're going to have to recap again. Okay. Native Americans in Spain will begin to find themselves in the courts, and they're going. So Hernan Cortez, when he gets to the Americas, okay, what ends up happening is that Hernan Cortez is going to be the person accredited for conquering the people known as the Aztecs. Okay, and so what happens is King Montezuma is in Mexico City. King Montezuma is in Mexico City and Tenochtitlan, and basically Hernan Cortez is going to get with rival tribes, and he's going to convince them to rage against the machine and go after it talks about slaves are given brands on their face to distinguish them from slaves by just wars, and Indians who were enslaved by other Indians. And what this made me think about was this. Now, this is before my time, but this was when Prince was in conflict with his labels, and he wrote this word on his face. And it also made me think of this, how face tattoos, they've always been in existence, but you can see how the history of where we come from and the things that we experience, even with people who, why does this sound familiar? Well, because we're living in a system that share similarities to this. So it's not necessarily a numbers thing, meaning that you can have a minority in this group, but they were granted access to own the labor of the many. So you have the many working for the few. Okay? Now stay with me. Stay with me, okay? Because we got to get through this. The only difference was on paper, it was not considered slavery. In practice, it was still slavery, forcing men and women to work against their will in the mines of Mexico. Then we had the Chicha Mech Wars. Okay. We had people like the Zacatecas, the Guantantos, Durango, Mazapil, and others resisted. Realizing that the world is full of injustice and one person can only do so much. but they still have to go and try to produce justice. Comfort now equals regret later. Guys, at this stage in the game, at 30, I've seen so many guys sacrifice greatness, meaning having justice that they really wanted, but then that would entail having delayed gratification. And I'm guilty
The
of this
Aztecs
too.
and before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs. Again, we don't know what they called themselves. That's what the Aztecs called them. They called them the Olmecs, and it means the rubber people because they a rubber producing area of Mexico. They worked in giant megalithic constructions. They're most famous for these huge carved human heads, which can be on a scale of up to 20 to 25 tons in weight, and which have curious features which have been interpreted variously as Polynesian, African, don't look like classic Native American features.
So archaeologists and scientists believe that the Olmecs are the parent civilization of all of Mesoamerica. Their civilization emerged somewhere around 1600 BC in the lowlands close to the Gulf of Mexico in San Lorenzo. And their chief civilization, one is in San Lorenzo and one is in La Venta. And they had a population that they estimate to be around 15,000 in that particular city. They had a hierarchy. They used precious minerals. They also farmed crops such as corn, sweet potatoes, beans, squash, cassava, chocolate, avocado, and this civilization worshipped jaguar as well as serpent deities. What were the origins of the Olmecs? Some have theorized that the Olmecs were originally from Africa, but DNA studies on 2 Olmec remains indicate they had DNA consistent with the indigenous population of the Americas. No specific DNA link has been found between the Olmec and Polynesia or Africa. Interestingly, though, a DNA study published in Nature in July 2020 links the ancient Zuni who lived on the Caribbean side of the country of Colombia to Easter Island and the Fontu Hiva in Polynesia. Researchers believe that this happened around AD 1200, which would have been long after the Olmec civilization. But it does set the imagination racing. Perhaps future archaeological finds and DNA astonishing art form distinctive to the Olmec were the colossal heads. These awe-inspiring carvings have been found mostly in San Lorenzo, with some in La Venta and a couple in other settlements. These heads were gigantic, up to 11 feet high, weighing several tons. They were carved from basalt boulders from Cerro Sintepec in the Tulex Mountains, over 50 miles away. Another source of basalt used in the colossal heads was the San Martin volcano. How did the Olmec move these enormous stones over all these miles? The mysterious transportation of these massive carved heads is mind-boggling. They would have had to have used They would have had to have been dragged or perhaps on the platform rolled under rubber balls. You got some countries like South Sudan was just created in the last 40 years. Okay, you get what I'm saying? So we've been here, all right? And since we have like a country so long, we fought in every war in the country. You can't even start talking about American history without talking about Black Americans. When you bring up the United States, or even if you want to bring up Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, any place really in the Americas, you're going to start talking about us. You have to, because we've been here so long. And so my position is, are Black Americans indigenous? Yes. And like I stated, my personal ancestry, I can document and go back to before Mexico was Mexico. And Mexico was invented in 18. I'm going to show you this, then I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to go back and forth with it like that, okay? So stay with me. And I hope you're having a good day, by the way. My name is Brian. Welcome to my stream. I'm going to show you images of ancient artifacts. And this is from the Museum of the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. So look at this figure, right? And then watch this. So if you looked at that image and then you look at this image, you'll definitely see how these images correlate to one another. Okay, a counterculture that although our bodies was trapped mentally, we were able to ascend, guys. They were able to enslave us physically, but mentally, guys, our ancestors always fought back. And even physically, they always fought back, guys. So this is a day not to feel sad, but a day to honor our ancestors and to respect our ancestors, to remember the great tragedy and triumph of our ancestors, what they went through. Our ancestors fought in every war in this country, okay? And if you want to be honest, the Black Americans are really the true Americans, guys. Let our people vote. This is what we went through, guys. We went through this, but we came out of it, and we still coming out of it. We are resilient, guys. We are a beautiful people. We are a beautiful people. We are a beautiful people. We been flying, even under oppression. We come on, man. But we got a lot of work to do, baby. I want you to
experience does for black people or people that would be labeled black are all over the world. And what the education system attempts to do is to tell us that all of these people came from the slave trade. That if a black person is in Mozambique, they got there from slavery. If a black person is in the United States, they got there from slavery. If a black person is in the UK, they got there from slavery. That's just too convenient. Sometimes you have to use your logic. The question we would have to ask ourselves, well, what places are the darker people indigenous to? And if you go down that rabbit hole, you will find that they're indigenous to every country in the world. Now that's another thing that's either true or is false. See, Acts, okay.